Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. Dr. Ellen Albertson wants to make your next chapter your best chapter. And today she'll tell us how. Dr. Albertson, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Bill. I'm looking forward to our conversation. I appreciate you having me on today.
Well, you've written a great book, Rock Your Midlife. And my first question is, why? What caused you to write this book?
Well, I've wanted to be a writer since I was 5. So this is my 5th book. There's a couple of reasons. First, I love to write. It's kind of a love-hate relationship. I love it when it's done and it's finished. There's a tremendous feeling of satisfaction and creativity that goes into it. So, I love being a writer, putting my work out there. I have worked with thousands of women at midlife. I've been working with women at midlife even before I was at midlife myself. And even though I love coaching women, I can only reach so many women in my life. And I wanted to have a bigger influence. And I guess the last reason is I want to change the way we view midlife. When we think about midlife and you put midlife in Google, what comes up is crisis. You put it in a thesaurus and it's the wrong side of 40. And I'm like, no, midlife totally needs rebranding. So I am really here to help people realize that you get this amazing second adulthood, where if you follow the 7 steps in my book, you really can rock your midlife and make your next chapter amazing. So I'm just looking to change the way we view this amazing period of life.
Now, you obviously using the term midlife a lot, but how would you define it? Because today we've had people on the show saying 125 is going to be I'm not going to say the norm, but we're going to know people just as almost everybody knows somebody who hit 100 or they're close to 100 years old today. What can you put a number with midlife, or does it change by the person?
Well, it might change a little bit by the person in terms of health and in terms of their perspective. In general, it is sort of defined between 40 and 65. But Bill, you're absolutely right. I think that's changing. I mean, I'm one of those people who is primed to make it to 120. I take my health and wellness very seriously. I'm a dietitian. I'm a board certified health and wellness coach. I grow, my partner and I grow most of our food. We move every day. So I think that's a huge piece of why we're needing to redefine what midlife is and the span of it, because we're living longer. The average age of people now is 80, 81. So that's average. So if you stay healthy, you take care of yourself. Let's say you're making it to 120, then midlife could be the smack middle is 60. But I also like to think of it in terms of second adulthood. So we kind of have this first adulthood in our 20s and our 30s. We make a lot of mistakes. We learn a lot, and we have an opportunity to ask some deep, penetrating questions to figure out who we want to be and really transform and recreate ourselves for this second adulthood into the golden years that you really can figure out who the heck am I and what truly makes me happy and what do I want my life to look like.
Now, you mentioned something about 7 steps in Rock Your Midlife. Can you tell us what those are and what that's about?
Sure. Well, the first step is to know yourself. So if you're going to rock midlife, you've got to be authentic. I know in my own life that like that first adulthood, I was climbing up this ladder of success, but it was up against the wrong building. My life looked great on the outside, but I was like living someone else's, and you're smiling because you know that feeling, right? Where you're living someone else's vision.
I'm going to interrupt and say that's the great title for your next book, Climbing the Ladder of Success, but Don't Be on the Wrong Building. That would get my attention. If I see that in the bookstore, I'm going to pick it up and read it, and then I'll say I know the author. But that's a great title. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. But I made a lot of my decisions based on pleasing other people, pleasing my parents, my spouse, or thinking about what society would think was acceptable or what success looked like, because I really didn't follow my heart and get to know myself on a deep level. So if you want to make your next chapter your best chapter, number one is you've got to figure out who am I? And I give a lot of journal prompts in the book, a lot of links to places where you can go, where you can take psychological instruments to really learn more about yourself, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what you're good at, what you love to do. So number one is be authentic. Number two is you've got to love yourself. And this was a huge lesson for me. I used to have a fierce self-critic. Nothing was good enough. My career wasn't good enough. My body wasn't good enough. My kids, my marriage, right? I was always trying to aim for this perfection. And I never got there because I was carrying this sort of backpack filled with not enoughness into my future. And that's what showed up. I was super hard on myself. So the second chapter is really, the second step is really all about self-love. And the heart of that is learning something called self-compassion, which is essentially learning to treat yourself the way you would a good friend. I was really fortunate enough to meet Kristen Neff, who is the pioneer in this whole area of self-compassion. She was on my dissertation committee. She required me to learn self-compassion for myself. It totally changed my life. So loving yourself really does change everything, because when you love yourself, you do what's in your best interest, whether that is, eating more plant foods, eating a healthier diet, taking that walk, being in good relationships, being in a career that lights you up, seeing again, it's sort of piggybacking on the authenticity, because you start to do what's really right for you when you love yourself.
You probably see me writing down all these notes that you're telling me, because I think you make some great points. And obviously, these are things we have to start thinking of, and especially at that point in midlife. Now, what is the U-shaped happiness curve?
Well, the U-shaped happiness curve is a curve that pretty much goes across 132 countries, that there is a predictable dip in happiness in our 40s. And actually, there's also a dip in primates as well. So it seems that people naturally have kind of a dip in their well-being. But the good news is that then there is an upswing. And I think this is, again, another myth is this idea of midlife crisis. But there is this period around, in our late 40s, when we're kind of staring at 50, where we sort of start to question, I'm not as happy as I'd like to be. Again, maybe on the outside, everything looks really good, but inside, we're not really in alignment with our passion, with our purpose. And it's a really great opportunity to do a lot of questioning around who you are and figure out what's going to truly make you happy. So the good news is that then there's this upswing in our 50s and looking to 60, where people actually start to get happy again. So there is, again, this predictable dip, but we do improve. And I give people lots of ideas in the book about things you can do so that you can make the most of your upswing.
Give us some of those ideas. Here we are coming out of, let's say, 48, 49, and we'll just use that as an arbitrary number and deciding that maybe we've had that little dip and we want to come out of it. Can you give us some ideas about the upswing? What can make it better?
Well, first, take care of your body. There's certainly a body-mind connection. When we, eat great food, we take care of our microbiome, which are the microorganisms living on the surface of our skin and our gut. When we move our bodies, when we get enough sleep, we certainly are happier. So a lot of people I work with, really need to change their lifestyle. Changing your lifestyle will change your life. You'll have more energy. You'll be more positive. Another thing that's really powerful is to change your mindset, right? To do things like a gratitude practice. There is so much research that shows that practicing gratitude, being grateful for being alive and your health and the people in your life, and the fact that if you're listening, you probably have electricity and enough to eat, all of those things, big and small, really does improve your happiness. Another thing to do to make the most of your upswing is start appreciating yourself. Sometimes we think, gosh, is that am I being conceited if I'm really happy about who I am and what I do in the world? Appreciating and loving yourself is so important. I think not taking yourself so seriously. And this is a big thing in my life where I had a long swath of my life where I took myself so seriously. I was kind of too quiet, didn't have enough fun. Do those things that you enjoy doing as a kid that light you up, that maybe are a little silly. Something I'm doing right now, doing new hobbies is great. I'm learning to play the ukulele and I'm just loving it. I feel like this, 8-year-old kid. So do something new, learn a new hobby, take a class, meet some new people. But I think to make the most of your upswing, and, as Einstein said, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you're going to get the same results. It's insanity to do the same thing. If you want to make the most of your second adulthood, your midlife, you've got to start doing some new things. And that could be even reading different books, changing the way you wear your hair, changing your clothes, your friends, the TV shows that you watch, the places you hang out. But you've got to start doing things differently if you really want to make the most of your upswing.
Dr. Ellen, I want you to know that we've been on over 33 years, and I think you're the first guest who's used the word ukulele in part of their life growth pattern. So congratulations. If this was the old show, You Bet Your Life, the duck would come down from heaven and we would hear it squeaking and you'd win. I forget what they got then, $50 or $100. It goes back a few years. At this point in the show, I'd like to remind our listeners that you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan. Our guest today is Dr. Ellen Albertson. She's the author of the book, Rock Your Midlife, and she's going to tell us where we can get the book and if there's a website where we can find out more info.
Yes, you can connect with me at themidlifewhisperer.com. That's themidlifewhisperer.com. You can get the book straight from the website. It'll take you to Amazon. You can also go to Amazon and go to Rock Your Midlife, and the book will pop up, and you can get it there as well. Hoping to have it in bookstores soon. That's kind of a next project for me. But thank you for giving me a moment to connect with your audience there. I would love to meet you and hear where you are at midlife and the fun things that you're doing.
And we will ask you that information again. And if our audience, anyone wants to get that down, you have a little more time to get a pad and pencil handy. But in the meantime, we're going to find out more about Rock Your Midlife. And I was just thinking, has the pandemic situation changed anything about what you write about in your book? Did you have to drop out chapter 9 or 4 or say, wait a minute, that's not true anymore because so much has changed? Was there any massive changes due to the pandemic?
There have been a number of them. And I have to say the things that I've seen in my practice and, working on the book, first of all, there's been a great resignation. So a lot of people have left the workforce. I'm seeing baby boomers leaving because they're not feeling satisfied. I'm seeing some of the Gen X people who, were really juggling both career and childcare. People were really reevaluating, what the meaning of life was. I think it caused everyone to kind of have a crisis, right? To have to stop and reevaluate where their life was at and what really was important. I think a lot of people realized things like family were important. And a lot of people started to, spend more time doing things like cooking became huge. As a dietitian, I love to see people. I saw both ends. I saw a lot of people were stressed and they were snacking and they were home all day. So there was always food available. But then I saw a lot of people who were cooking more home meals, and because restaurants weren't open and people were looking for fun things to do. So I think it changed people's lifestyle. A lot of people also, stopped moving. So I think moving their bodies as much, exercising. Some people found more Zoom opportunities, to move their bodies. So in terms of the book, I think that it just really made me also think about this idea of common humanity, which is one of the 3 elements of self-compassion, which just says that everybody struggles, everybody goes through things, and we were collectively going through this big change. It's changed our society. It's caused us to really reevaluate so many structures in our culture, in our society, in our country. So I think it really helped me to formulate more questions and ideas about how we can get to know ourselves and also how we can discover our passion and purpose. And through that, be part of the change that we need to see in the world right now. Because the pandemic, let's face it, really exposed a lot of cracks.
Oh, yes. And in fact, I'm going to ask you about that in the next question, because we get to midlife. Is that a time when we should be even thinking about changing the direction of our work employment or what we're doing on a daily basis? Has it gotten better because of the pandemic with the Great Resignation? If someone wants to be a teacher, can they go back and I don't mean to go into specifics, but let's say teaching or nursing or something that's an academic field, can they simply take some courses and go back into it? Is that something you're seeing, or are they looking in another direction?
That is something that I'm seeing. And in terms of what I'm seeing, like through social media, as well as, the news, and also with my clients. So I have seen everything from lawyers becoming writers, clergy people becoming writers, and corporate people becoming clergy. I've seen a lot of people saying, I want to be a healer. I want to be a massage therapist. I have worked with, a lot of people going and wanting to also do side hustles. So I think that, midlife is a really good time to reevaluate it. I've also unfortunately seen people being kind of let go, right? So people who have been at one job for 20, 25 years, and all of a sudden there are younger people who can work for less. And I've seen them squeezed out. So I had one client who was working in an industry, and she was clearly being kind of marginalized. And she worked with me to move from her corporate role into a nonprofit. So I think if people are realizing, I think something that happens at midlife is you do start to realize that there is less time perhaps in front of you than behind you. There is a sense that I'm running out of time, and, like a caterpillar becoming a butterfly, or a chick running out of space in the egg. There's a sense that I need to grow. I'm here to do something. I'm not, happy being part of this, cog in the wheel of this corporation. So I think a lot of people made changes. And something that I saw, and I read about this the other day in the New York Times, is that a lot of people double dipped. So because they were working at home, a lot of people were doing their job, but then also had more time because they weren't commuting. They were able to manage their time differently. They were actually able to start a side hustle. And I've also seen people, particularly things like people doing network marketing, where they're doing that on the side and that becomes more viable. You'd mentioned teaching. Someone might start with substitute teaching and moving from there. So I think that those kinds of things vary from state to state and wherever your region is in terms of what you need as a degree. But I think that the shifting economy, there certainly are a lot of jobs available now. And so I think people are really shifting what they are doing and really asking what's going to really light me up. And maybe people aren't as concerned with the monetary, right? I think when we go into, I think about my 20-year-old son, it's all about how much money can I make, right? So I can have all the stuff. And then we get to midlife and we realize, gee, all this stuff, I'd rather drive a $20,000, $30,000 car than work so much and have an $80,000 car. It's not going to make me happier. So I think midlife people are making those changes. I think the pandemic gave people a bit of a pause to really think about what's truly important. Something I work with a lot of people and also mention in the book is, looking at your core values, of examining what's truly important to me and are my core values in alignment with the work that I'm doing in the world. And
as you said, and while you were answering, I was thinking of it, if you're hiring someone who is at that midlife point, they've been there. They have a lot of real world experience. They don't have to go through going to the soccer game, the dance recital, the piano concert. So they have the time to devote. And hopefully, if this is something they chose, nursing, being a paralegal, going back to teaching, this is in alignment with their values. So you're getting a really good person, not someone who's trying out the real world, someone who's been there. They know they've done this other job for 20 years, but now they're ready to go into something that's going to help humanity or a not-for-profit, something like that. So I think you've made some excellent points. How did you yourself get into coaching? Did it come about because of just a unusual factor coming in, or did you plan that? No, I didn't. Coaching is a relatively new field, and I was just got my certificate from Well Coaches and realized I've been a certified coach since 2007. But I didn't know about coaching. What happened was, I first became a dietitian. And I realized very quickly when I became a dietitian that I didn't have the behavioral change tools that I needed. I knew how to tell somebody, eat this, don't eat that. So if somebody had high blood pressure, diabetes, they came in, I could say to them, okay, Mr. Smith, eat this, don't eat this. But actually getting them to change was something that I had absolutely no skills in. So it's been a gradual learning process for me to develop the skills. What happened with me learning coaching is I had a career in the media. So I became a dietitian, was an outpatient dietitian. My ex-husband and I were the cooking couple. In the 90s, we were celebrity chefs. I stopped doing that. I've always been a jock. So I became a personal fitness trainer. While I was a personal fitness trainer, I was going to a training
training, and one of the leaders in the training said to me, "You should become a coach." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, what's that?" And so he told me about Well Coaches, and Well Coaches has been one of the leaders in the coaching field, particularly the wellness and well-being and health coaching. And so I became a coach through Well Coaches, I guess back in 2007. And then I did their professional training. And then a couple of years ago, there's a new cert, which is a national board certification, which is starting to accept insurance, which is very exciting. So now I have all the tools. So most of my clients come to me and they certainly know that they should be eating carrot sticks instead of Cheetos, but they don't know, why am I eating Cheetos and are having, it's usually Chardonnay and cheddar, instead of the carrot sticks. And now I have the behavioral change techniques to really help them to understand for themselves and empower them to really change their lifestyle and to be happier on the inside and the outside.
You just ruined the day for my producer. I mean, once you told him that you're supposed to eat carrot sticks instead of Cheetos, that just ruined his day. Dr. Ellen, before we go further, I'd like to let our audience know that you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Bill Horan. Our guest today is Ellen Albertson. She's the author of Rock Your Midlife, and she's going to tell us where we can get that book and a website where we can get more information.
Well, you can get the book on Amazon. Just put in Rock Your Midlife and the book will come up. It's a pink book with a dandelion on the front, which is my new metaphor for midlife. And you can find me at themidlifewhisperer.com. That's themidlifewhisperer.com. I'm the only midlife whisperer on the planet. You can also get the book directly from the Midlife Whisperer. And there's also a tab to contact me there as well if you would like to get in touch.
And to our audience, again, if you didn't get that down, we'll ask Ellen one more time before the end of the show. So get the pencil, get the pen, get the pad handy. There's a lot of great questions I have. I want to get them in. I know I won't get all of them into you, but what's the biggest mistake that most people make at that point in life? As you see them coming into you, do like 50% fall into one trap or 20%?
When people are trying to, biggest mistake they make at midlife?
Adjusting to midlife or making a transition into midlife?
Yeah, I think that it's mindset. Mindset is so important. And it's part of it is that we have this culture that really kind of worships youth, right? So the media wants you to feel bad as you're getting older so that you'll buy their solutions. And it's, we've been fighting that, but ageism is kind of the last ism, one of the isms that really also needs to be looked at. So, you have this mindset that it's all downhill, that, I've reached 40, I've reached 50, my good years are behind me. And if that's what you believe, well, that's what's going to show up in your life. So the biggest thing I see in people is sort of this fear of getting older, of losing their capacity. When you look at the literature, you see that, Nobel Prize laureates, people writing bestsellers, people, making movies. I saw Clint Eastwood, who I believe is still alive. I watched a movie with him the other day and I was like, there's people who are doing amazing things in their 60s, 70s, 80s. It's not a downhill slog to the end. And I think you need to realize that, you might slow down a little bit, but if you take care of your health, you eat the right foods, you move your body, you do things to stay happy and keep your mind sharp, and you keep exploring, you've got all of this wisdom and all of these skills and abilities. It's not too late to live that dream, do that traveling, meet the love of your life. I got engaged a year ago.
Congratulations.
I got divorced. Thank you. I got divorced and I met an amazing man during the pandemic. So it's the sky's the limit. I'm just having the time of my life. I feel like I'm a kid again.
Isn't that wonderful?
Backwards.
And I mean, that's a great example for the people you work with, because this is your life and you're showing it to them. So when they say, oh, I can't do it, or you can't be done, this is just theory, you're living the life that you literally talk about.
Yes.
How can most people get motivated? Is there a trick or a saying you have or a book that they read that gets them kind of on the track to say, okay, now I'm going to begin this career. Maybe I'm starting as I did in college, but I want to come out and be a nurse or a technician in a field or get a certificate for a different type of occupation.
Yeah, I actually really love Atomic Habits by James Clear. I'm rereading that.
He's been on our show. Yes.
Oh, he has?
Yes.
Wow. He's fabulous. I think that the thing that he really talks about, which I love, is don't just start with like your goals and your to-do list list. A lot of times our goals are too big or they're not specific enough. But what he has you do is think about the kind of person you want to be. So let's say, I want to be a healthier person, or I want to be a wealthier person, or I want to be a more creative person, or I want to be someone, who's a healer who helps people. So start thinking about, okay, this is the person that I want to be. And then what he recommends is developing systems and what he calls atomic habits, small habits that make a big difference. So for example, if you want to be a healthier person, a simple thing, carry an apple in your bag, or a handful of almonds, and maybe a water bottle, or set, a goal of, I'm just going to walk for 5 minutes a day, or I'm just going to, for me, like my ukulele, wanting to be a musician, right? I'm just going to take it out of its little case and I'm going to play with it for a few minutes. Sometimes I end up playing with it for an hour because I'm having so much fun, but you have to set these goals that feel very doable and turn them into habits. So he's all about making it a habit, the way you brush your teeth, where you have what's called, a cue. You engage with the activity, and then you give yourself a reward at the end of it. So, think about the kind of person you want to be, but then drill down and think about what are the things that I'm going to specifically change, and keep it positive. So let's say you're a smoker. So you don't want to become you don't want to say I'm an ex-smoker. You want to become, I'm someone who doesn't smoke. I'm a healthy person. Smoking is not a part of what I do anymore. Don't get into this, thing of beating yourself up. Think about who you want to be and create habits that support that, and read the book. It's really, really a good one.
Now, suppose I come to you and say, I've been an accountant for all these years, but I know I want to be something else, but I don't know what. Should I be a cowboy, a fireman, or a space cadet? Is there a tip you give people, or put them on a road that helps them make that decision?
Yeah, I would say two things. Well, first, read the chapter on authenticity, because that will give you lots of journaling prompts as well as psychological tools that you can take in order to know yourself better. Love yourself, because when you love yourself, you do what is truly in your best interest. So do that self-compassion thing, which is step 2. And then there's something I talk about in step 5, which is empower yourself, and also step 7, which is enlighten yourself, called finding your destination vibration. And this is huge. What that is you want to think about the emotion that feels good to you. So maybe it's joy, maybe it's creativity, maybe it's some kind of satisfaction, happiness. And then think about a time in your life when you felt that way. So I'll give you an example of my own life, which really transformed my life, is I wanted to be more joyful. So I started visualizing dance. I've always been a dancer. I've loved to dance. I've been dancing since I was 5. So I visualized myself at 5, visualized myself at like 9 on a stage with a chorus dancing. I saw myself belly dancing at the Charles River, and I was doing swing dancing at the time. And what happened is, as I did that, what happens is when you visualize, your brain doesn't know the difference between the visualization and actually happening or it happening in your mind. You change your vibration and you start to attract what is right for you. So to give you the example of the accountant. So let's say I'll give the example of my partner, who is a high-tech guy, but he's also a gardener. He loved as a kid to play with trucks and play in the dirt and grow things with his dad. Well, what that will do is it will help to draw, magnetize, attract opportunities, people, places, and things in your life that will give you clues, little breadcrumbs that will help you figure out what it is you want to do.
Perfect timing, Dr. Albertson. We want our audience to know the book is Rock Your Midlife. It's by our guest, Dr. Ellen Albertson. And the website, real quick?
themidlifewhisperer.com.
Thanks so much for being with us today. We'd like to remind our audience that you've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, asking you to please join us again next week at the same time when we will continue our journey to success.